Let's look at a couple more verses here in Exodus 13 today. And remember, we talked a few days ago about this dedication of the firstborn of both the animals and the human, the baby boys here. So it says in verse 11, this continues this thought, and God expounds upon it. This is what you must do when the Lord fulfills the promise He swore to you and your ancestors when He gives you the land where the Canaanites now live. Stop there for a moment. So this was not something they would start doing until the promise was fulfilled, the promise that went all the way back to Abraham. Because remember, what we're seeing here in Exodus and what we will see in Joshua and Judges is a fulfillment of the promise going all the way back to Genesis chapter 12 with the original Israelite, the original Jew, Abraham. So we move forward from there. He says in verse 12, you must present all firstborn sons and firstborn male animals to the Lord, for they belong to Him. And remember, that's talked about in the first part of this chapter. A firstborn donkey must be bought back from the Lord by presenting an animal or young goat in its place. But if you not buy it back, you must break its neck. However, you must buy back every firstborn son. And in the future, children are asked, what does all this mean? And you will tell them, with the power of His mighty hand, the Lord brought us out of Egypt, the place of our slavery. And Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go. So the Lord killed all the firstborn males throughout the land of Egypt, both people and animals. That is why I now sacrifice all the firstborn males to the Lord, except that the firstborn sons are always bought back. The ceremony will be like a mark branded on your hand or your forehead. There goes that idea that with phylacteries again that we talked about yesterday. So if you didn't watch yesterday's video, go back and check it out. It is a reminder that the power of the Lord's mighty hand brought us out of Egypt. So, as I said, this takes effect when they enter the promised land. And the interesting thing here is if the firstborn was unacceptable for sacrifice, if it was an unclean animal that was not acceptable for sacrifice, or if it was a human, because a human was never okay for sacrifice, then a substitute was offered to redeem the firstborn. So instead of sacrificing your firstborn son, you would sacrifice a bull or a sheep or a goat or whatever. You would make a substitute there. So it was like you were purchasing that back from the Lord. Lord, I give this child to you, but the Lord doesn't want that child to be sacrificed. That child is just dedicated. And so a different sacrifice was offered. Same thing for animals. Now, if you didn't want to buy the animal back, then I guess you could, it literally says like a donkey, break its neck, go ahead. So it's an interesting way that they did this. And it was this idea of being set apart. And understanding this meaning here, as they bought back, they offered a burnt offering, right? And later on, the Israelites will actually sacrifice some of their children to the false god Molech. Ahaz, who's one of the later kings, he actually sacrifices his son in 2 Kings 16 to this false god. That was never what the Lord intended. This was very symbolic with the firstborn sons to show that God's place of preeminence in their world and their lives. They were dedicating their very best to Him. But never with the idea that any harm would come to any of these children. It was very symbolic. But God demands our best, and He deserves it. He's our deliverer. Have a great day.